See that? Now we can come in and do some percussion blending up here. Our thickness is pretty good, maybe a little thick in a couple of spots. And then we'll take our major flute, and then we'll do a little antler pressure work and we'll be done. I'm going to turn this off really quick and have a drink of coffee. Okay, we're back. Deciding when to do pressure work on these clovises it just completely depends on what type you're trying to make, or what variety I should say. It seems like there also might be different types depending on how the material started. If it was a blade platter that was finished then, maybe you can find a lot more, what do you call it, bi-beveled edges on platters that have flat cross sections that may be also associated with ones that are just made off of spalls that might be lenticular and more pressure flaked. I'm not sure what variation is allowable, but I tend to, or like to, when I'm making hammerstone ones, do as much hammerstone as I can and just a little bit of pressure work. And you can knock off little flakes with the hammerstone, especially when you use the corners of these hammerstones. I'm going to shut up for a minute and sort of forgot where I was headed on this piece. I forgot my coffee. No shame on coming down the tip and bringing her in line. It's crucial now because if you strike too much in on one of these flakes in a thick area, if you're not thinking clearly, you can get a bad hinge, and obviously you don't want that on the finished piece. So the reason why there aren't a lot of mistakes in certain kinds of pieces is because obviously they're controlling things, especially in the late stage where those aren't happening. And a lot of it's just simple angle problems. People, if you get worked up over a problem area and you try to do too much instead of just, like on this spot here where there's that crusty area, I want a flake, and I don't want to, this is an area where I can intentionally make a big hinge flake to demonstrate how that happens and why, and how the change in the material where there's a little bit of limestone right there, you can have a problem. So I'm just going to hold it and go at a low angle, not drive this straight in, and fairly smoothly, and knock that flake off there. It really helped. Okay. A little brushing. A sharp abrader. Boy, that is real stubborn. There we go. Cruddy spot in the rock. If I break it, I'm going to blame that little innocuous turdy area on the edge for the entire problem. Just kidding. almost ready to flute the thing. We could have done it already and then done all of this later. Getting to the point where it's about what I do. Now here's where you see a lot of pressure work come into play on some of these, where they'll go ahead and dome pressure. Not a whole lot, but they would take some pressure flakes here and blend in. But our edges we don't have a lot of thickness, and they're fairly well refined, so we don't need to. There's also a lot of intrusive pressure flaking on a lot of clovis points when they get done with their fluting. There's really nothing you can do wrong. One of the things you can do wrong, though, is after you get it all fluted and you're doing your edge retouch up here on the blade, make sure you put a base on it and get it done. And then anything else you do above the hafting when you're done, just leave this be, because one thing that they weren't doing in a lot of, well, if they broke it off in the haft and they had to mess with it, then they would fix it. But a lot of times, once you mess with the hafting area and shaping when you're done, it just looks dumb, because they were used, obviously, they were bound up, and they were resharpening the point, up here. So if you do a whole lot of messing with it, the base, you can make it look funny. Now I'm going to do some pressure flaking. So we have another little tough spot here, and I'm going to use my antler ishi stick. Can't see anything. Okay. This is weird napping for the camera like this. Okay. You can talk all day long about what old clovis fluting platforms look like and generalize about them, and then try to make yours look like that. But the fact of the matter is, if you use antler and are doing direct percussion and trying to flute off some of the same platforms that they made, it's just virtually impossible. They're just so stout and not sticking out there and heavily ground, and they really look like hammerstone platforms. But then again, some of the flutes don't look like they're hammerstone. So my suggestion is just make platforms that work for you and the tools you use, and then store it in the back of your mind, and then you'll find reasons for why that works. Okay, I'm not going to go in depth and theorize and too much. Actually, I've done a whole lot of that already, but take it with a grain of salt. I'm just a hobby flint napper who's been really interested in it for a long time. I'm not credited or published or anything like that. You can't undergrind these hammerstone fluting platforms. You really can't. It might be a little heavier. Okay. Now I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it by the margins like this, and I'm just going to kind of come down. Here's where I really wish this hammerstone had about twice the mass it does. This thing is wearing down. Yeah, I caught it. That was kind of fancy. Alright. Nice flake. I don't know what I shouldn't. When you knock flakes off, you don't try to grab them. I was worried about losing it for the picture, and obviously it's not a good idea. You can cut yourself. That's just nice. I couldn't be any happier with that. And our edges are turned a little bit, so where we can do some pressure flaking for the second face now. Just a dandy. I'm gonna go ahead and show that off a little bit more in case I mess up the other side. Okay.